You're standing in a forest right now. An animal moves through the trees ahead. You need to decide something immediately. Is that one animal or several animals? Your brain answers before you consciously ask, before you have counted anything deliberately, before you have used any number system. You just know. One or more than one. This ability feels completely unremarkable to you. It feels like the most basic thing possible, but it is not basic at all. It is one of the most sophisticated cognitive systems ever documented in any species on Earth. And your ancestors were running this system for hundreds of thousands of years before anyone invented a single number, before anyone had a word for 3, before anyone had a symbol for 7, before any counting system existed anywhere. They were making precise numerical decisions every single day of their lives. Decisions that determined whether they ate, decisions that determined whether they survived, decisions that were accurate enough to keep the species alive for 200,000 years, without a single written number. In 1967, anthropologist Pierre-François Pirahã discovered something extraordinary in the Congo. A baboon bone approximately 20,000 years old. It had been found decades earlier in 1960 by geologist Jean de Heinzelin de Braucourt at a site called Ishango on the shore of what is now Lake Edward in Congo. The bone had notches carved into it. Not random notches, deliberately grouped notches arranged in patterns that suggested counting. The first group contained 11 notches, then 13, then 17, then 19. All prime numbers between 10 and 20 on a 20,000-year-old bone carved by someone with no number system, no mathematical training of any kind, no formal concept of prime numbers at all. Researcher Alexander Marshak at Harvard University spent years analyzing the Ishango bone. He concluded the markings were lunar notations, tracking phases of the moon over time. Someone had been watching the sky carefully, recording what they saw with deliberate precision, not randomly, not decoratively, with a system. A system that worked, a system built entirely without numbers. But the Ishango bone is not the oldest. In 1973, archaeologist Peter Beaumont discovered something in a cave in the Lebombo Mountains, on the border of Swaziland and South Africa, a baboon fibula approximately 43,000 years old. It had 29 notches carved into it, deliberately and carefully. 29. The exact number of days in a lunar cycle. The exact number of days in a menstrual cycle. Researchers have proposed it was a calendar, or a cycle tracker, or a record of something that recurred, something that required tracking to be useful. 43,000 years ago, before agriculture, before permanent settlements, before any of the conditions, we associate with the development of mathematics. Someone needed to track something carefully enough that they created a physical record. They could not write the numbers. They did not have the numbers to write, so they made marks, one mark for each occurrence, accumulated over time. Preserved in bone, found 43,000 years later, still counting. Cognitive scientist Stanislas Dehaene at the Collège de France in Paris spent decades studying how the brain handles numbers. His research, published in 1997, documented something that changed the field entirely. The human brain has two distinct numerical systems. They are completely separate from each other. They developed at completely different points in evolution. The first system Dehaene called the approximate number system. It requires no language. It requires no symbols. It requires no formal training of any kind. It is present in human infants from birth. It is present in rats and pigeons and fish. It allows instant comparison of quantities, more or less, bigger or smaller, many or few, without counting, without symbols, without language. Just immediate, precise intuition about quantity. This is the system your ancestors were running for hundreds of thousands of years before the second system ever developed, before anyone ever needed anything more precise. Because for most of human history, more or less, was precise enough to stay alive. The second system is completely different. Dehaene called it the exact number system. It requires language, it requires symbols, it requires formal cultural transmission. It does not develop automatically. It has to be taught. And here's the finding that most people never hear about. In 2004, linguist Daniel Everett at Bentley University in Massachusetts spent years living with the Pirahã people in the Amazon rainforest of Brazil. The Pirahã have no number words at all. Not one, not two, not three, not a single word for any specific quantity. They have one word meaning roughly few or small, and one word meaning roughly many or large. That is the entire numerical vocabulary of an entire culture of people who have lived in that forest for thousands of years, successfully, feeding themselves, navigating their environment, maintaining complex social relationships, surviving everything their ecosystem has presented them, without a single word for any specific number, without ever needing one. Peter Gordon at Columbia University tested the Pirahã extensively on numerical tasks. His research published in Science in 2004 found something that directly challenged the assumption that number words are universal. The Pirahã could not consistently distinguish between 4 objects and 5 objects, not because their intelligence was limited, because their language did not require the distinction. The brain does not develop systems it is not required to use, without number words forcing the brain to maintain precise individual counts. The approximate system handles everything. More or less, enough or not enough, dangerous or safe. These distinctions do not require counting. They require assessment. And the assessment system has been running in human brains since long before anyone counted anything. What Gordon's research revealed was not a limitation of the Pirahã. It was a window into how all human brains worked before language gave us number words, before number words gave us exact counts, before exact counts changed what we needed. To understand what ancient humans actually used, you have to understand what they needed to count, not the abstract numbers we count today, not money or measurements or calendar dates. They needed to count threats. 3 lions or 1 lion. The difference meant survival or death. They needed to count resources. Enough berries or not enough berries. The difference meant winter survived or not. They needed to count time. How many days since the last kill? How many moons until the dry season? All of these are approximate assessments. None of them require exact numbers. None of them require symbols or words. They require a calibrated sense of quantity matched against known thresholds. Enough. Not enough. Too many. Too few. Safe. Dangerous. Your ancestors made these assessments thousands of times every single day, with extraordinary accuracy, precise enough to survive, accuracy precise enough to navigate, accuracy precise enough to build the social structures that eventually produced the cultures, that eventually produced the numbers, that eventually produced you, anthropologist Caleb Everett at the University of Miami, son of Daniel Everett, spent years studying numerical cognition across cultures without number systems. His book Numbers and the Making of Us, published in 2017, argued something precise. Numbers are not a natural feature of reality. They are a cultural technology, like writing, like the wheel, like agriculture, invented at a specific point in history by specific cultures facing specific needs, and then transmitted culturally to everyone else. Before that invention, before that transmission, human brains operated entirely on approximation, on pattern recognition, on the accumulated sensory experience of a lifetime spent paying close attention to a specific environment. An experienced hunter did not count tracks, they read them. A depth of information no number could fully capture. How recently made, how heavily weighted, how fast the animal was moving. Whether it was alone or followed, whether it was healthy or injured, all of this extracted from a footprint, without a single number being used, without a single word being spoken. You still have this system running inside you, right now, at full capacity. It is the system that tells you instantly when a room has more people than usual, when a crowd is larger than expected, when something about the quantity of a situation is different from what you anticipated before you have counted anything. Before you have applied any number to anything, you just know. The system fires, the assessment arrives, instantly. Accurately, without any of the cultural technology your ancestors spent 40,000 years developing. The numbers you were taught in school are the newest layer, the thinnest layer, sitting on top of something ancient that has been running continuously since long before anyone needed a word for 3.